Alright, after a bit of a false start, hopefully this stream is going to be working okay now. Um, yeah, not really sure if it will be. Fingers crossed. Be nice if I could see the quality of this stream. Oh, maybe I can. Seems good, I suppose. Maybe I can. All right, sweet. Hopefully that's all good. So basically what I'm going to be doing today is working on a Vectorworks landscape design for this project. It's in Texas. I live in Australia, so I've actually never been to site, but I do have some okay photos and a site survey. It doesn't need to be the most exact design. A bit of a long story, but I actually just sort of volunteered my time on this project for someone that I met online, basically from a Reddit post who was looking for a landscape design. So I thought, why not? I give it a go and I'd show you guys how I sort of work through the process. So yeah, this is their existing house, so a brick facade. One thing that's quite odd is that there is a just an independent door here that, you know, it's not a very good interaction from the house to the outside. So I find that quite interesting that it's just one door. It's coming off the residence like that. Um, This is sort of like the long side of the house, sort of like a services side. Here we've got some drone shots, so it's this property. So the main space is going to be within this backyard area, obviously. That long section we were looking at before was running along this side. And then we've also too got the front that needs to be designed also. So I'll probably be breaking this up over a number of live streams. If you have any questions or anything about the process or how I'm using Vectorworks throughout, feel free to just ask. And yeah, I'll pretty much jump straight into it. So a few other photos, I suppose. So once again, looking at the backyard, once again from the backyard, a bit of a photo at the front. So I'm assuming that the property boundary actually runs here. Um, so this is their property. And you know, we've got some existing trees. I think they'd like to maintain these trees. Uh, and here's a shot from above, which is quite useful. Quite an interesting shaped block, quite odd. I find it always very interesting when I'm designing in other countries. Uh, you know, these houses look like absolute mansions to me, and the blocks are quite generous as well, so quite exciting. We'll see how we sort of go through with that. So yeah, those are the existing site photos, and let's jump into Vectorworks. So I also have a um, survey that the person has sort of whited out some, I suppose, residential information, which I think is good, seeing as I'm going to be posting this online. But what I basically will be doing is I've got a PDF layer here, and I'll just start by importing. I wonder if I could just copy and paste this. Is that going to work? Yes, it will. PNG is the document coordinates. That should be fine. Don't want to reference it. Couldn't be bothered. Uncompress. That should be fine. Here we go. Site survey. Wow, very exact. And the client, the person, is even drawn on a little north, south, east, west as a bit of a rough guide. Um, so the first thing I'm going to do is actually something that I wouldn't normally see. This is actually, because it's an American thing, my units are set up as millimeters, which is what I work on most of the time. Now there are options within the document settings. So if you go Tools, Options, Vectorworks Preferences, I believe it's in here. Actually, no, I'm mistaken. It's in File, Document Settings, Units. So this is where you can set your dimensions. So we've got everything in millimeters and square meters and things like that to a decimal. It's quite common. I've never used this dual dimension feature before, but maybe I should. Should I? You know what? I shall. I shall use it for a bit. We'll see how we go. So essentially what I need to do is scale this image because this is going to be my base plan and I want this to be to the right scale so that when I'm working in this space it is samesies and I can just draw straight on top of it. So I'm going to select the image, go modify, scale objects. Symmetric distance, so this is the current distance it's asking for. So if you know this, you can just type it in, but if not, you can click on this little button, go in, click, and normally I try to pick the longest boundary axis to try and get as accurate as possible. Seems to be this one. So this is our known dimension, and like I said, this isn't going to be exact. This is far from exact. And now it's asking for our new dimension. If you've noticed what's happened here, once this comes up, you can't actually zoom out to see on the page what that dimension is. Like I can't zoom to now look at that number, which is really annoying. So what you have to do is cancel it, scroll to a part where you can see it, or you could write it down if you had it in front of you. I just find that a little counterintuitive. Anyone who's used Vectorworks before probably knows what it feels like to run into counterintuitive things like that. So I believe that's got our current distance, and now we will go in and put in our proposed distance, which I think if I go 140.49, 49 feet, that may actually work in that way. Ooh, did that work? Only time will tell. It does seem a little big. Let's see what we got here dimensions wise. 165, that could not possibly be right, could it? Let's go feet to millimeters. And we'll go, what are we looking at? 140.49 feet to millimeters is 42821. So I'm going to go back into this, go modify scale objects. Current distance is that, and we actually want it to be 4282, oh shit, 42821.4 we'll call it. And we'll go okay. See what that does. That is looking much better. So now if I grab my tape, this here is, should be 42. Yeah, it's close enough. And we've also got, what's this dimension here? So this is meant to be 118.18 feet, and we've got 36308 approximately. So if I go 118.18, 36021, double check, because it's quite important that you get this right, because this is obviously going to be our base plan. 36021, you know, it's a scanned image. I reckon that's going to be close enough, and I'd be happy with that. So we've now got our base plan. I find it quite good to just right click on the layer itself and go edit. And then you can actually edit the opacity of the layer that you're working on. So you can just turn that down maybe a little bit more, go for 50. That should be all good. All right, sweet. So we've got this now as our base plan. I then go onto my site plan layer, make sure that I turn the visibility of this PDF layer on, and I'll turn this visibility on also. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can do this. What I'm looking to do basically is draw this property boundary. I want this property boundary to be drawn in so I know the constraints of where I'm working in. There's actually a tool called the property boundary tool, property line, sorry, that is quite useful. You know, I guess that's the thing with Vectorworks. It's ultimately a software that can be used from landscape, you know, residential garden design all the way up to crazy landscape architecture for designing a whole airport or something completely outrageous. So there's a lot of tools in here that, you know, you can do it the smart way, or you can simply just draw it. And in this instance, I'm just going to draw it. But definitely check out that property boundary tool. If you need to be very exact, it can be quite useful. And this is also a second chance where we can sort of go through and just double check our measurements. So just give me 1 second. 36021 we're looking for on this side. So I'm just going to wing this actually. I'm dead set just going to wing this to hell. I don't think it needs to be that accurate. Don't do what I'm doing right now. If this is a serious project that you need to get absolutely bang on, I would highly recommend that you spend a lot of time to make sure that this is accurate. but in my circumstances, I'm quite happy to just wing it. So I've just drawn a polyline, simple all straight edges. I'm going to go to the add vertex mode and add a cubic spline point mode, where I'm just going to grab this in between these two. So you've got a vertex here that can move around, and you've got a vertex here that can move around. We're going to add a curvy vertex here that can move around, and I'm just going to drag it out so that it makes a nice little curve there to match the street. Now I'm going to chuck this straight onto the boundary class. So now I've got my boundary line, and if we turn the PDF off, you can see that we've got a little dashed line to show our property boundary, which is quite good. I'm going to jump in and throw in some boundary dimensions. I'm just going to go with the dimensions themselves. This is I guess one of the benefits of using the boundary tool. It'll actually, or the property line tool, it'll actually input all that information for you. So it's much smarter, but I am quite happy to just run along and chuck these in onto these classes and call it a day. It's quite a big block for a residential block. Well, probably isn't in Texas. Given what I hear about Texas, everything is quite a bit bigger. And if we're judging straight off housing blocks, it does appear to be that way. But yeah, so we can always change the class down the track if we need this text to be bigger once we're sheeting it up. But for now, I think it should be fine. Alright, what dimensions have we got here? This one's not really square with a boundary, which is quite annoying. I'll just quickly run in and straighten that up. And what do we got? 128.28. We'll chuck the little feet sign in there. Cool. Grab this, drag this guy down here. What do we got here? 140.49.49. Boom. Straightforward. Now, is it going to give me something here for this curve? You know what? It's not, and I'm just going to leave that as is. So basically, up to this point, we've got really simple, straightforward property boundary. The next thing I'm going to actually work on is going to be the residence. You know, being a landscape designer, you don't really need to worry about the internal. Sometimes you do have to worry about the internals. I'm not saying you don't have to worry about it like at all. Sometimes you do. But in this given circumstance, I know that it's just going to basically be a shell of a house, and it's going to be made out of brick. This is also a good time for me to get up the photos once more. And it's a good idea just to have a look. I think there was a good aerial one here. So this is what we're sort of working towards, is just getting this house set in where it is, or where it needs to be. And then I'll throw in some of the additional sort of like surrounding site stuff as I go. Alright, so 3D residence. What I'm going to do is grab myself the wall tool. So if I go wall, we're going to draw this out of walls, quite straightforward. Now to find a wall style, we've got all these generic wall styles, but I don't know how it works actually if you have Vectorworks in another country, whether your walls look different. I'm just going to go with a simple brick 230 external, even though brick veneer possibly a bit more realistic. Yeah, brick veneer, possibly more realistic. Doesn't really matter. But I'll grab that, I'm going to zoom in, and now I'm just going to, what would be the best way to go about this? Probably the best way would be if I actually input the units, but we will see how that goes. So what have we got here? 64.9, can I just go 64.9 feet? Is that going to work? Oh, it's going to work, my God. How great. Then we're going to go across. I'm just going to try and follow this as closely as possible. I know it's not quite 100%, but should be enough to get me out of trouble. This here is 3.3 feet. That number looks hard to read. I'm not sure what that is. Maybe 7.5. 7.5 feet. Another thing that I should have done is straighten this up, like squared it up. You can see here that, you know, the whole house is sort of on the lean, which I don't really like working to, and I'm actually going to fix that now. So if I go in my layer settings, I normally always have it to show and snap others. So it'll just show and snap the other layers, but I can't accidentally click on things on other layers and start moving things without meaning to. But in this circumstance, I do want to show, snap, and modify others so that I can select both of these things, or pretty much everything in the model space. And I'm going to square it up, but what would be the best way to square it up? I think just vertically would be fine. Um, the house isn't square to the boundary. Pretty much nothing is square to anything, which is kind of odd, but not unheard of. So I'm just going to click that, hold shift, and just square everything up so that at least the residence is square in the drawing, and then everything else around it I can change as I go. So I'm going to change that back to show snap others so I don't accidentally see now. I can't accidentally click on these things and move them. I'm on the residence layer, and we'll go back to our wall tool and we'll have a second crack. So clicking here, coming up, what do we have here? 64.9 feet, boom. Going across, it just stuck out a little bit there, but whatever. 11.2 feet. I'm sure this is meant to be square because I can't imagine this not being square. 3.3 feet, and I've got a strong feeling this is meant to be at 45 degrees. Then we're going to go this way, 7.5 feet, boom. And then we've got 3.6 feet, and I'd say that would be negative 45 degrees to bring us back to where we're meant to be. Then we've got 16 feet, straight forward there. It says that's covered, which is good. 13.6 feet. Ooh, look at this. Does that come out? I think it does come out from the photos. It like comes out a couple feet. Don't know. Let's just see what 1.5 feet look like. That looks pretty good. Foot and a half. Why not? I think that's 4.7 feet, and I dare say it was meant to be at 45 angle. 6.3. This looks like it's a negative 45 again. What do we got? 4.6 feet, negative 45. I've got a lot of luxury here because I can basically, I know this. It's not like I'm going to be going to an to an engineer and saying, hey, I need this to be built exactly as I've modeled it. If I was getting survey information that was, like a DWG or had more detail, I'd definitely be designing to that detail. Oh, I think I've just made a mistake here. Did I just drew a 3mm line here? Yes, I did. So I'll be able to backspace that. Sweet. Yeah, the feet and inches confusing. 36.3 feet. Fine. That's at 12.7. 7. Oh, didn't specify feet. If this happens to you, like you've drawn something and now you've put something in the wrong spot, you can just hit the delete key, and that'll take you back to your last known little location. So what did I have there? 36. Oh, what on earth? Oh no, that's fine. No, it's not. It's tripping out. There we go. It's better. So we got 36.3. Oh my god, I keep forgetting to put feet. It's going to be the death of me. 36.3 feet. Boom. Then we got 12.7 feet. Seems good. Not sure what this step in is, but doesn't really matter. Might go for the old 2 feet. Okay, what if we go 2.5 feet? Seems good. This doesn't really look as square as I'd like it, but I'm trusting that it is. 4.9 feet. Very interesting. Bring it straight out. 11.3, 11.3 feet. Straight across. Assuming this comes straight down 14.7 feet. Like that. And we've nearly lined up. We're out by some ways there, but I'm just going to call that a day, join it up, and we'll move on with our lives. So I can already see a problem here. These two walls haven't joined. I've got auto wall join on, so I should be able to just drag this back and drag this one back. I think it's this little end guy that's causing the issues. So I'll drag this out, and they should join just like that. Pretty straightforward. Now, I've drawn all these walls in, but the walls don't have any height. And what I need to do is layer wall height. I want it to be layer elevation, and this one layer elevation. Not sure how high these walls are. Not available on the survey data. If I wanted to be a nerd, I could count these bricks. You know, there's pretty average spacings that you can find between bricks that normally work quite well. Just from looking at this, for some reason it feels as though the ceiling isn't very high. Or sorry, the external wall at least isn't very high. Another good way to tell is looking at doors. Where's my door photo? We've got this door here. An average door, that might be like 2.2 meters to sort of the top here. Sorry, 2.2 meters, 2,020 millimeters, which would be around 8 foot maybe, maybe less. But that's a pretty good way to gauge it. So I'm probably just going to call this something along the lines of that plus a few. So I might just call it 2,800 high. Oh, geez, not that high. Let me undo that. 2,800. You can see, you know, we don't have a wall texture. Quite sad. If I were to go out here and edit the style, let's edit this external brick, edit. We don't have a texture. It's a class texture technically, so I could put it on a brick class. And I think I will do that. So what I'll do, go back into here, external brick, edit, class texture, sweet, function, class component brickwork. Well, that's pretty good. I think I could just live with that. So that's what class it's on. So then if I go to my classes, which I have set up here, I go component and I go brickwork, edit. We have this, and then we have this, which is our wall textures that we want to add. So I believe I can actually just put it textured here. You know, red brick smooth face, that will probably do me. Holy smokes. So when you're looking at this and you're thinking, geez, that texture doesn't look very good, what is going on with that? I think a big part of understanding Vectorworks is, you know, there's so many layers to what is happening when you're applying a texture, editing classes, and it can just seem really, really confusing. And I think that's perfectly fair. So when I'm looking at this, I can see that it looks as if it's getting blown out. Like what I'm looking at isn't the actual brick texture itself. It might be the mortar joint in between or something weird. So if I go into the file and then sorry, this is the resource manager here, and I go Renderworks textures and I find red brick smooth, edit. Got some absolute weirdness going on here. What is this? Oh, it's come good. So we're going to set by image for this size. So if I grab this and move it to here, so once you hit this set by image, this is the way you can set the size of the texture based on the image that we've got. So when I'm looking at this and I can see here, I've just sort of, you can manipulate this line. So say I want to go from here to there. I know that the distance between those two is about 220. That's sort of average brick size in Australia at least. So I'm assuming it's not too different in America. And it hasn't fixed it. You know what? I think I should have just stuck with what I knew. And see if I can change this. Let's go dual dimensions there. Very interesting. See what happens if I choose another texture. It does appear to be a texture problem. Let's Control Z, Control Z. Very interesting. Edit style. That's fine. Component textures. Or I might just say stuff it. Use overall textures. I couldn't be bothered making a new. Let's just go texture. And we will just go. Where's my bricks at? There it is, looking right at it. We'll go okay. That should be fine. Alright, finally got our bricks back. We're happy. Um, so that's basically it for modeling the actual walls of the house. I know it's not the most accurate, but I do feel like it's close enough. Now, if we look at our existing site photos, what do we got here? If we look at this, the backyard, I'm just going to call this flat. It's flat for all intents and purposes. It does appear to slope down slightly to the front street. So, yeah, don't really have the greatest picture of it. Maybe this one. It doesn't look like much, but it does look like more than nothing. So I'd probably call that maybe 400 mil of difference, 40 centimeters, bit over a foot of difference between there and where the person's standing. Maybe even 2 feet, maybe a bit more than that. So it's important to be aware of that. But what I'm going to do is edit this residence layer and set the elevation to 10 meters. So that's sort of going to bring it up, and that's going to be the finished floor level of the house at 10 meters. I'm also going to jump in. Might turn these other layers off to give some clarity. So this is our house in 2D and 3D. Very happy with that. I'm going to grab the slab tool, and we are going to pick a style. And I think it's just I don't know what it's on. It could potentially be a concrete slab. It definitely looks like it's on the ground. I'm not sure if it'd have a basement. Maybe that's not a Texas thing. Maybe it is. But I'm just going to show it as a generic floor assembly. And you can just use the bucket tool in between a bunch of walls, and it'll just automatically put in a generic floor. And that's just helpful to be able to see, just be able to see a floor of some sort. Now you're looking at this and you're seeing it sort of overhang. That'll probably be covered up by the site model well, actually that's an interesting notion. With a bunch of zooming, you can see that it looks as if the bricks are actually on a concrete slab. So what I'm going to do is bring that slab. Can I actually delete this? I'm going to go slab, generic floor assembly, and I'm going to edit the insertion mode to that can stay. That can stay. This setting here, I believe, auto bound outer face of wall core. If I change this to outer face of wall, what it should mean is that when I insert this wall now, it will go to the outside edge of the wall, which is what it does in the photos. So I can Command B, put that to the back, and then we've got something that looks pretty accurate to what we've got going on. So that's pretty straightforward. Now, bit of a tricky spot here. I'll need to go through and put in the doors and windows without having a true sense of where they are. So you can go about doing that, the Windows and Doors tool that's in the Building Shell tool palette. Hopefully this isn't your first tutorial on using Vectorworks. I'm sort of just explaining things as I go. If you have any questions or you want me to slow down at all, feel free to comment now during the stream or even comment after the stream. That's completely fine. I'm assuming a lot of you guys already know this stuff, but I'm just going to go over it for those who potentially don't. So we've got a sectional overhead door. So I'm just going to grab, looks like sort of a car and a half size. So it doesn't look like a really big garage door. Surprising coming out of Texas, but I will just choose this. I'm just going to click in and out. And now we should have our garage door. I'm just really glancing over at the photos to get a sense of width. I reckon probably 5200. Maybe it's a bigger garage than I gave it credit for. It does look kind of big. I think that'll do. We can go in and change how this looks down the track if we like to, or we can, I suppose we'll do it now. You go settings, so click on your door, you go settings. Pens and colors, we've got some dark colors here. We can change the classes of the door itself, but I think I'm just going to go in and change the color of the door and just make it a white, because it appears that's what it is, and I should go OK. And now I've got pretty well white garage door. Should be good enough. Now going back to top-down view, we need to work through some of the windows. I'm not going to get too hung up on this, but I will show you guys. I think my headphones have just died somehow. Very interesting. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. Um, Now, what are we going for here? Windows, Windows, Windows. So these windows, a bunch of different combinations of windows here. I'm not going to get into the detail, into the weeds. Like I'm not an architect at this point. Nothing's changing to the house. I just want to be able to represent it close enough to be able to give it a sense of what the design sort of entails. So I'm just going to go and start dotting these around, um, getting rough widths. Uh, the more you do this, the easier it becomes to sort of gauge how high and how big things are, um, especially wherever your local area of work is. You'd be surprised how often things are actually very, very similar. Um, Now, I have had some issues with this in the past of, this is one window I've made. I want to just place it here. Clicking in and dragging appears to work, but then when you look closely, it has not actually inserted into the wall, which is really annoying. Um, but then sometimes you can just drag it out, place it over the wall again and let go, and then it will be. So try your mileage with how you go, clicking and dragging out windows, and be sure to always double check. Doors, hinged, glazed exterior. A lot of these are just what come in my default Vectorworks. Being from Australia, we sort of have quite a good um, range of assets for doors and things like that that appear to do most of the job of what needs to be done when selecting things like that. So it's pretty straightforward. Along this side, it looks as though there is a window back here somewhere. Doesn't appear to be as big as the others. Let's go with this again, why not? Looks as though it sits about here, very exact of me. I'd say it's about 1500 wide, and by the, might not even be that much, might be 1200 wide. And seems like it might even be narrower than that. What's going on, Texas? Got tiny windows now. That'll do. Just checking a second reference image as we come around the corner. Do we have, oh, look at this photo, this one's a good one. So we've got this window, not sure what's happening under there, but I assume another window. And then we've got these, look at that, 1, 2, 3, 4, God, that's a lot of windows there. It's nice. Okay. So this, just going to drag a copy out. Should be able to drag it in. Nice. That's a win. Then I should just be able to drag this out. See if I let it go here, if that works. See, this time it works. Just very temperamental, that the window tool when it comes to clicking and copies and dragging. So yeah, try your luck. Now it's working again, which is interesting. Do we have a good photo of this back window? I can see the glimpse of a window here. So I'm just gonna run with that. Just think I might try a different window mode here. I might try the sliding triple pair windows. Bang it there. I have a feeling this would be about 2400 wide, maybe even a bit wider than that. 2800? Seems good. I've actually stuffed this up already because this is actually, excuse me, this is actually a door. I'm just going to grab this door, copy and paste. Will it stick there? Yes, it will. Will it open out? Very unlikely. So in the object info palette, door swing in. It should do. No, whatever. I'll leave it the other way. I'm not really sure which way it goes in the actual house, but it's alright. Shouldn't be too big of an issue. I know I've got a bunch of bay windows. Oh, wait a second. This is a pretty good angle. Looks like this is actually 3 separate windows instead of 1 window. Alright, better add it in. So get that, delete, 0, drag it out. I feel like they're a bit wider than that, 1200 maybe. And they're quite tall, I'd say they're 1800 high. And then it looks like there's just something like 1, 2, 3. This one here just scooted over a little bit. I would like to get these perfectly symmetrical. So I'm just going to drag both of these right to the edge. I'm not brave enough to try and mirror windows. I feel like that's pretty close. So I'm just going Command M with the windows selected to move them. Excuse me, just had to sneeze, my gosh. Now moving on to these final windows. What are we going to go with here? I think these are very interesting windows. I think I'm just going to go with these. Actually, I could probably just copy these bad boys out. Boom. Right there. Width, we'll go 15. Oh, this one might be like 1800. And I'm just going to check it's inserted correctly. Yeah. Cool. Now we've got a real skinny guy over here. And I'd say, well, he's even narrower than that. Let's go 700 mil. Should do. Got a big wide guy here. So we'll go with this guy again. And then I'm pretty sure we've just got another one of these fellas over here. And that should just be about it. Like you can see, it's starting to look like a house. I did have a photo of that long side here. There's a bunch of windows here. Do I want to show them? Not really, but I should, so I will. I'm just going to completely rip off these windows. Guys, I hope you're not judging me on how haphazardly I'm slapping this together. I promise I can be more accurate when the need arises, but for the moment, and given the usage of this, what we'll be sort of using these plans for, I think this is fine. Sort of hard to see how wide those are given the photos too. What's this one? 1200, whatever. I'll make this 1200 too. This one's actually a little bit shorter than the other one as well, so it's probably 1200 that way. And then I grab this guy, drag him down here, put him there. I think that's just about it. You know, we've got an aircon unit here. Can maybe come in and doll up some of those things as we go. But there we go. Basically got our house. Now we need to build a roof. So I'm going to go to the roof layer. Oh, I've already made this roof layer here. It'd be a good idea if you had a roof layer available to yourself as well. Now this can be where, it's going to be interesting to see how Vectorworks handles this, but it does have a roof creation tool. So we can see that there's a few, like look at this, we've got some detail coming out here, which is kind of annoying. Then we got pretty straight run, open gable end, return, typical pitch there. So we'll see how the roof tool works this situation. So we're on the roof layer. I'm going to select the polyline tool. I'm going to just start to draw around the building, um, sort of in line with where the roof is. Does something really interesting here, where I believe it does this, and then just goes straight across. It did say that this area under here was covered, so no doubt that's sort of the rough idea of what's going on. I'm going to draw this bit out, draw back down here, and we've got our polyline. So this is what will become our roof. Um, I also, just before I do this, want to reference, where's a good image for it? Like this is a good image for it. There's basically no eave. I don't know if this is standard in Texas, but they have no eave to the roof. Like, they've got a bit of an eave here, but even looking at this, like, and this is south facing, so this is like the equivalent of, you know, it gets as much sun as possible, which most of the world does. Being in Australia, north is where the sun comes from for us, but this backyard is south facing. Like, all these windows point south, so they're going to be getting a lot of sun in here without an eave, which I just find interesting as to how the house doesn't heat up to 1,000,000 degrees. But anyway, now that I've got this drawn, I go landmark, architectural, and then create roof. It'll bring up this dialog box. I want to have vertical, just a vertical edge. This is just personal preference. Once again, I'm not designing this roof to actually get built, so I can have a bit of creative freedom. Thickness 150, that's fine. I do need to specify a pitch, which is hard to know without architectural plans of the house. But the pitch looks pretty steep, so I wouldn't say it's that steep. I'm going to go 25 and see. And then the eave overhang, this is sort of what we were talking about before. To me, it looks like the eave might only overhang, 300. Even at the best, maybe 300. We'll have it on the roof main class, style, unstyled. I'm not too fussed about that. And we'll go OK. And there we go. It's actually done a really, really good job of this. Um, so there's our roof. And if you look at the aerial image once again, like there's our aerial image, there's our roof. Oh, what's the aerial image? Aerial image, roof. It's done pretty well. That saves you a lot of time, especially as a landscape designer where you don't really need it to be modeled to the nth degree. Now we've got it on roof main. So what I want to do is change this roof main class a bit. Roof main, let's edit that. We're going to change this to a hatch, and I really like to use, I believe I've got it in here. Maybe not. I know I've got it in one of these work resources. This empty fill. This is like a hatch that's made that has, it still registers as a hatch, but it technically has no fill, which allows us to see through the roof, which is really what you want. Then we'll go line type. Dash style 2 is good. Not sure if you have that available, but I like it. And then we'll go texture, and we want to change the roof texture. And I am probably going to use some of the textures that come with, like, this is the ANZ, like Australian and New Zealand resource pack. I'm sure you guys have something equivalent or potentially much more extensive. But I can make do with this if I go roof tile. Geez, what color is it? Don't even know if it's an actual tile, but I guess it sort of looks something like that. And then if I go OK, that's updated. So we've got our dotted line, and it hasn't updated the texture. But if I go by object, texture is set to none. I want to set that to by class, and we should be able to go by, yeah, I think we can do that. Just go by class. No, potentially not. Got a doozy here. By object overall. See if I try this, make all attributes by class. There we go. So it did have the class information, but it wasn't reading all attributes by class. So I had to go in and just set that. If you go to this hamburger menu, sort of gets cut off by my screen here, but this says attributes by class, so it sets all the attributes based on the class info. So now I've got our roof, which is great stuff. Um, I normally just keep the roof on 0. Um, sorry, the building roof layer, I have its elevation set to 0, and then what I'll do is I'll just select it, click Control Alt and M, or if you're on a Mac, it's Option Command M, and we will increase the Z height by our 10 meters, which is what we brought the floor level of the house to, and then I think we went 2800. And now we have a roof on a house, which is what we want. That looks pretty good to me. You can see here, like, we can actually look up and into this roof. There's actually a hole here. You can make a ceiling if you want. I often just don't because you won't normally see it in a landscape design. But if you want to, you can go for your life and do it. I've also noticed something interesting here that I need to correct because if we look at, where are we? This photo? See, it seems to me that there are pillars here and the roof actually comes out and covers this area, which is probably what's getting shown on our PDF layer. You can see here that says covered. So what I need to do is extend this roof. Now, I've drawn it. Remember, I drew the shape and then I went to landmark, architectural, and create roof. Um, what I can do from this situation here now is if I try to like double click on this, it just brings up roof settings, and I don't really want to change those. Like I'm quite happy with what the roof settings are. Um, but if I was to select it and then press the like dash key or the minus key, it's what's next to, yeah, I might see if I can move my camera over a bit. I'm getting a bit more reclined, so I want to make sure I'm still in the camera. Um, yeah, let's check. Yeah, that's pretty centered on the camera. That'll do. If you hit that dash key, it then brings this up, which is like your reshape tool. You know, it's basically this. It's the reshape tool. So I can now reshape this as an individual shape. So now if I hit the move polygon handles and click on our little blue handle, I can move this down to where I want it to be, which is probably somewhere there, and that's looking pretty good. So now we go back, look at that, the roof's updated, even bigger hole, so maybe need to fill that. Um, we'll see how we go. Might just leave it for now. Can always come back to that sort of stuff later. You can see here that we've got 2 columns that sort of flank the door. 3 columns, sorry, that's a third. And it looks like that's a fourth there too. So they've got a column. It's very interesting that they've got a column there instead of just resting the, the edge of that on this wall of the house. But seems okay. With these columns, there is a column tool in Vectorworks. I'm actually not going to recommend that you use it because it can be a little bit finicky. I'm just going to draw it out. And what I might do even is, looks like a double brick, triple brick, 2, 4, let's say it'd be about 550 mils each way. A foot is, how big is a foot? 12 inches. And an inch is 2.5 centimeters. So let me just go 1 foot for you guys. 1 foot is 304 millimeters, so we'll just call it 300 millimeters. So this is 500, so it's like a foot and a bit that we'd be working with. So I've got that. What I'm going to do is hit this tool, which is quite a useful one, this move by points tool. And what you can do is you can select this distribute mode, and you can set the number of duplicates. So I've got 1 of these already, and I need another 1, 2, 3 of them. So if I go 3 and enter, now I've got object retention mode. So when I do click and drag, it won't delete this original one. what it does is it just drags out 3 copies. This can save a lot of time in drawing stuff. I believe this would sort of end at the edge of the house. It's not quite there. I'm going to just tweak this a bit so that they're centered well enough with the door. So I'm going to call it there. And I'm going to say that's where my columns are. They all go there. Um, I just realized I'm on the roof layer, which I don't want to be. And I've just drawn these things on the roof layer. What you can do is, I've got these objects selected in the object info palette. I can then change it to 3D residence, which is what I'm working on. Or if you're lazy like me, a lot of the times I just go Command X, click on this one, and then Option Command V. Uh, sorry, Control Alt V on Windows, or Option Command V on a Mac, and it'll paste these in place for where they were. So I've now got my columns here, and that's looking pretty good. And then I can go Control E, and I can extrude them up, and we'll make them as high as the walls are, which was 2800, I believe. If I turn the roof on, looks about right. And I'm going to set these onto the component brickwork class. This component brickwork class really struggling as of late. By class is the texture. So now we've got this. Obviously these are facing the wrong way. A lot of the time you can change that by just changing the rotation. If you look here in the object info palette, I've gone into the render settings, and down here we've got rotation. So we can change the rotation of these bricks. You might also notice too, as I'm sort of clicking and dragging around, there's a lot of flickering. The best way to overcome that is just to simply move them back by like 5 mil. So uh, Control M on a Windows or Command M on a Mac gives us the opportunity to move X and Y, and we want to move it Y, so move it straight up, and we just go like 5 mil. But we'll just step that back in. Now you can see we don't have that flickering. Looks reasonably good, I suppose. Um, and then what I'm also going to do is go top down. I'm going to go modify, create symbol, and I'm going to make a symbol out of these extrusions just so that I can give it a 2D element to it as well. So if I change this to brick, let's just go front brick pillars. Pillars, that's fine, just leave all that. Insert in walls mode, normally keep that off, unless you're making a window or something. You don't really want to be inserting that into a wall. So then we go OK. It wants us to put it into a folder. I normally would just make a new folder and just call it something like project components. Um, you can be a lot more organized than me if you like, but normally that is fine, and I'll go OK. So now this is a symbol. You can tell because when we select it in the object info palette, it says 3D symbol. It's a 3D symbol because it has 3D information. Like this is the 3D information. If we double click and go to, well, actually a better way to do it if you're just learning is if you right click and go edit 2D components. This will now bring us into a top down mode. Uh, you can see here edit, this is the component edit sort of palette that tells us about what we're editing. We can edit the bottom, the front, all sorts in a 2D way. But in the top down is fine. And what I want to do is to draw these as little, you know, basically as solid colors so that when I'm looking at it in plan, I can see them. So if I right click and go generate 2D from 3D components and use the hidden line setting, it does a lot of the thinking for me, and it's just drawn these simple rectangles. So that saves a lot of time. We then go hatch, and actually, I'm not going to go hatch. I'm going to make it class. I'm going to make all attributes by class, and then change this to components and make it, where's my brickwork? Brickwork. For each selected group, yep, make the subgroups that same color, and then I can exit, yes, and there we go. We've got our brick pillars, and now when I look down from above, we've also got our brick pillars in a 2D format, which is nice. So that's pretty much that component done. At this stage, a lot of it, I think, is quite good in terms of the residence. I think that's good enough. Like if we stack this up to our, where are we here, images. You know, the roof is actually, well, it's definitely close enough for me. Looks like all the neighbors really like these tiles as well. Um, Brickwork looks fine. Sort of got that slab showing. Um, House is good. I know I was looking at one of the photos. You can sort of tell, oh geez, that there is a concrete pad that comes out here, which I find kind of interesting. Not sure if that's a barbecue or something. Um, but yeah, they've got a concrete pad that comes out there. So I should probably model that in. Um, we got this covered area too. So we've got some concrete at the front. We've got an existing driveway path and things like that. Um, Sometimes what I'll do, I've got an existing landscape layer that I make, and I normally find it's easier just to draw the existing stuff directly onto that. So I will do this as a hardscape. So what I normally do is I'll just draw a basic little, probably go to that window, probably just make it even and go to the end of that. Once again, not being too exact. There's my shape, right click, create objects from shapes, and we will go a hardscape. If you don't use hardscapes, you definitely should. Um, Highly recommend using them. Once you've got some sort of styles and presets, I'm going to try and do the majority of this just with what comes in my Vectorworks setup without using my work um, materials, just because I know that not everyone will have access to that sort of stuff. So I felt like if I sort of do a run through of, you know, how to make it work with what you've got, you guys can sort of do the same. Got a bunch of exposed aggregates, but it's not really an exposed aggregate. Honed? Not really. Nah, that'll probably do. Can always come back and change this after anyway, but I'll insert that. Now these styles, I don't like having colors or like a, you can see that this is like a tile finish on my hardscape. I don't like that because when it comes to printing plans, it can look very messy. It can be hard for landscapers to read plans that have colors all over them. They might not have a color printer, and then things turn out all weird once they've printed them off. So I like to edit the style, edit the 2D configuration. At the moment, it's set as a tile. I just wanted this to be a hat. Clicked the wrong thing there. I just want this to be a hatch, and I'm just going to choose. Where's my little default concrete hatch? This concrete large normally works quite good. I think I'm going to stick with that. Okay, okay. So there we go. Now we got this. It's sort of hiding underneath the PDF, but basically there it is. We've got our hardscape. Um, Now if I go to the elevation, we know that we set the house to 10 meters. Oh god, that was one extra zero. It's a long way up. But very rarely will you have a house just come straight out onto, you know, any hardscape because it's just not really done. Um, Probably to prevent water and things like that from getting back in. Most of the time I see a 70 mil step down in Australia in terms of step downs from houses to different bits. Might be different here in America. I can't really tell from the photos, but it's good enough for me to roll with. Um, Now, if I turn the PDF back on, we can see we've got this. We've got this sort of curved concrete and this driveway. I'm not going to fret about this stuff just yet, but I am going to jump in and we will do, worth checking the photos once again. Hard to see if the piers actually end directly on the concrete or off of it. What I might do is just do this and snap it like that. And then I'm just going to bring this down another, what, 25 mil? 20 mil? I'll bring it down another 25 millimeters, which is 1 inch. I know that one. I can remember that one. I'm also going to go back to these units because it's really annoying me that these millimeters, decimal precision, I'm just happy with one. Dimension object precision, just happy with one. That should be fine. Millimeters are like infinitesimally small. You know, you got 25 mils to an inch. Um, so yeah, they're pretty tiny anyway. Normally, if you get close to the nearest millimeter, you're doing pretty good. Very rarely do builders get it to the exact millimeter. Or they can. I shouldn't sell them short. I've also noticed here that haven't filled this part into my slab. So I like to just draw rectangles, select both of them, shift, uh, shift Control Alt and A to add surface, or it's also Shift Option Command A. And that'll add two sort of 2D surfaces together, which is quite good. Then we'll create objects from shapes, hardscapes, and concrete honed house black. Is that what I used before? Sure. Sorry guys, my headphones just died again. I'm not sure why they're turning themselves off. Very, very odd. Just give me 2 seconds and I'm just going to plug them in. Alright, should be all good. If you're rewatching this at all, let me know how the quality is in terms of the video, making sure that you can see all the, the icons and things like that around um, on the screen. It can be sort of hard to get a gauge. I use like a ultra high def monitor, and getting it to sort of fit well enough um, onto the page can be a little tricky. So let me know how that goes. Um, Once again, just set that to the same elevation. I dropped it down to 70 mil, which 70 mils, what's that? About 3 inches. I'm going to force select these pillars. Oh, I've done the old classic. How have I done that? Oh yeah, we got existing landscape. Need to make sure that layer is turned on. So we got this. I'm going to go back to our force select. I'm going to go back to our symbol that we've got here. Double click into it because you can see there's a bit of a conundrum here that this is not touching the ground here. I might just drag this down. Probably the easiest way to go. Look at that. Can't even tell. Can see up in there pretty well, but we'll see how that comes out in the renders. Probably not an issue. And there we go. We sort of got that. Like I said, I'll come back to this path in the driveway once we start doing the actual site modeling. Um, a lot of other things too, like what's happening out here on the street, for instance. I think I'm going to leave that as well, um, and do that later on in the piece. The next thing that I want to do is we've got our PDF, we've got our site plan. I might turn the PDF off. You can see that we have no elevations. Like, I can't make out anything here that, what do we got? Restricted reserve, like very interesting. But I can't make out anything here in terms of elevations on the ground. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the PDF. We've said that the house is at 10 meters, and I'm happy to call basically this whole backyard area level. So if this comes down 70 mil, I'm just going to say that the whole backyard comes down 100 millimeters. So I'm sure if you've ever done this before, making a site model, I think the easiest way to do it at this point would be just to grab stakes. I'm going to set this elevation to, we had our initial 10 meters, take away 70, then take away 30, and that'll give us sort of our ground level. And I'm just going to start dotting these out. You need to make sure it's included site model data. It's important. So I got this one down. I'm just going to chuck this one over here, chuck this one back here, chuck this one somewhere here. This fence sort of comes out and across and sort of goes to here. Let me just double check my pictures. Like, it's sort of hard to even tell if it goes down much at all. Like, it's pretty bang on level. But I might just bring it out to like, I'll just bring it out to here. I'll bring this one out to somewhere here. There. Um, bring this across to over here. This is just a lot of feel. If you can't really like understand what I'm doing right now, you will get it over time. It's just after making a lot of site models, you just get a gist of what roughly works. Swear my boss at work is like the master of winging site models, so I find that quite impressive. I think over the whole distance it probably goes down, what, maybe a foot, 2 feet. So I might just minus 600 millimeters, which is equivalent to 2 feet. And I'm going to bring this out here and out here. It's funny working in Texas. I'm now trying to accustom myself to feet. We'll see how we go. So I've done a massive boo-boo, if you haven't noticed, is I've put all this on the residence layer. This shouldn't be on the residence layer. These stakes should be on their own layer, um, which is, I'm going to call it the survey layer. I'll use the survey layer. Normally that's where my survey would go and it would already have the spot heights, but I'll use that anyway. But if I go onto my 3D residence, so this is a good tool if you haven't seen this before, is these stake objects. I want to just select these, but it can be annoying if I have to go around and click them all, or even trying to like drag and just select the ones I need. It can be annoying. If you use this magic wand symbol in the basic palette, tool palette, it's just select similar tool. Just click on that, click on one of them, and it will select all of your survey stakes, or all of whatever it might be. It might select all hardscapes, all whatever. So I've got those. I'm just going to go onto my survey reference and paste in place with Control Alt and V, or Option Command V. It's a very important one. So these are my stakes. I'm going to select them all again, copy. I'm going to leave these ones here, and I'm going to paste a set onto my site model layer. I'm going to go landmark, create site model from source data. If you've never seen a site model before, I pray for you, because they can be quite tricky. This is a very, very simple one, so it won't be an issue, but I am just going to power through setting it up. I do have a video on the basics of creating site models. I definitely recommend you use that if you haven't already or need some help with it. And here we go. Here we've got our site model. There it is. And I think that's pretty accurate. You know, we've got a little bit of slope off happening here. You know, the front slopes down a little bit. I reckon I could take that. I could just about take that to the bank, except for one thing, which is that, well, actually, this might just be more a me problem, but the ground would come to the front of the house, um, unless the driveway is stepped down. But what I can do is I can before I do this, I'll also show you too. You can see how the site model doesn't actually go all the way around this corner. I'd probably like to be able to show that in the 3D model. Um, So what I'll do is I'll double click on this, recreate site model from source data, go OK. Recreating the site model will erase any contour edits or surface sculpting. Well, it's a good thing we haven't done any of that yet, and that'll bring us in here. Now, when we're looking at this, it can be really confusing because it's like, well, where's the garage? You know, where are my stakes in relation to that? The reason I've come in here and I can't see it is because this setting, show other objects while in edit mode, is not selected. If I select that, it's now showing me other objects while I'm in the edit mode. Pretty straightforward. If you don't see this up here, click on this little arrow and that'll bring up a big list of things that it can show in that area, or just general settings you can have. So see, I've got auto join walls selected, clip cube selected, and also the, where is it? Display. I've just lost it. Oh yeah, here it is. Show objects. Show other objects while in edit mode selected, so that I can just quickly turn these on and off. But yeah, so here we go. We've got this. I can select all my things. What I need to do is drag this guy to here. And I might drag him here. I might drag him here. That's not really 100 mil set down though. Pretty much at floor level. So I'm just going to make it 10 meters and see what it looks like. Like you've probably noticed throughout, It's not the most accurate. Project. I've got a hardscape here. There's a little bit of clipping here where this is coming up and over this. My OCD is not stoked with it, but I can go into this. What I might do is grab these, copy them over to here, copy them over like that, grab them both, drag it down to here, and I'm just going to select these. This is like, I pray that you have survey data or more information than me. I'm literally just basing this off photos. Um, so I really recommend that you take the time to get this right. Um, but this is plus 10 minus 75. So this, I'm just sort of fudging some of these numbers just to make it sit where I want it to. And that's looking much better now. So there's that. And also I forgot to jump in and fix up my little problem here where I have got to add a point, one of these points. I'll add it just out here. Might even pull this one out. So I've added a point over here. Here, I'll turn this up. I've added this point over here so that whereas before it was sort of coming down and then just straight line across, and it's not really giving me this area. By giving it more information, like by dragging this copy out, the best way to drag a copy is just hold down Control and start dragging, and you'll make a copy, or I think it's Command on a Mac. Um, but yeah, now that I've got that out there, it's got all the information it needs to fill this corner in. But when I go exit, and this is quite common, I've seen this happen a lot, you'll be like, well, I've put the new information in. Why has the site model not filled this in? And the reason is that when it first makes the site model, it'll automatically crop the shape to the information it's got. Then if you start putting in more information that goes outside of that crop, it doesn't actually update to that new information, which is kind of like it's like a Vectorworks gotcha, where you can be stuffing around for ages trying to figure out why that is. The best, like the way you fix it is just select this site model, go to the object info palette, click on edit crop, and here it is. This is your crop, and you'll notice that it's the straight line across. Just delete it. Just delete that, go exit site model crop, and it just automatically fills in its own little corner there. And just what it's done now, if you go edit crop again, you can see it's just made a new crop based on the information that's available. So it's pretty straightforward. And now when we look, happy days, we've got a site model. Um, Hopefully that wasn't too hard to understand. Like I said, I do have a video on it. I'll probably do some more videos if anyone sort of finds this interesting, or has problems with site models. They can be quite confusing. They've gotten better over the years, but yeah, still a little frustrating to use. But there we go. We've now got our house, and we've now got our site model. We've got property boundary, and yeah, we're kind of rolling now at this point. Um, I don't think I'm going to go into too much detail around how to, like, I'm not going to go into detail of modeling the previous fence. I don't know if there's some sort of like homeowners association here where they need to have these timber fences. I really don't know. I'm just going to wing it. It feels like everybody has, like all these people have this timber fence. It feels like there's timber fences everywhere here, but they definitely need a facelift, so I don't know. But I don't think I'm actually going to do any more setup. I think I'm quite happy with this setup. Um, and I'm ready to get in and do some actual designing. So next time I jump on, which I'm sort of planning on getting on every other day, I'll pick up from the live stream here and start the Texas Landscape Part 2 and show you the sort of ideation process that I go through for sketching out designs and the best way to sort of do that. Um, I'm tempted to put in some of this context around for the street and the road and things like that. But I think that'll be easier later on in the piece, and I'll be able to show you how that works then. But yeah, if you're interested, please subscribe. Check out my other video on making site models. If you use Vectorworks, I'd love for you to yeah, turn up. I'm sure there'll be people out there who can teach me even more about the software. It's pretty much limitless potential for what it can do, and it's really just about figuring out how you want to use it. But if you want to learn how to use Vectorworks for landscape design in particular, feel free to follow along and yeah, join in for the next live stream. Thanks guys, thanks for joining, and until next time, take it easy.